And it's the story that's gotten a lot of people not just angry, but absolutely terrified. If you live in a big city in this country, chances are you've had occasion to experience road rage. And I can vouch for the fact that it doesn't happen as often as it does right here in the national capital. 34-year-old Shahnawaz paid with his life. And what was his crime? He was traveling with his two children on his motorcycle and he bumped into another car, not very late, just at about 11:30 last night in the old part of the national capital. He was beaten to death.
A Sunday evening joyride with his children turned deadly for Shahnawaz. His motorcycle accidentally hit a car, and then on display was Delhi's short fuse. A case of road rage which turned deadly and fatal for 38-year-old Shahnawaz. He was beaten to death in front of his little children.
एक ने मारा, फिर पीछे से एक्टिवा पे से तीन और आ गए, फिर वो भी मारने लगे, मेरे को भी मारा, फिर छोटा भाई गया पुलिस वाले के पास, पुलिस वाले ने कुछ भी नहीं बोला, सीधा सीधा चल दिया पुलिस वाला।
होता जाता है अम्मा अब्बू की लड़ाई हो गई और है ना, मैंने क्यों हो गई, किससे हो गई, कि नहीं अम्मा वो जाम हो रहा था ना, अब्बू की बाइक उसकी कार से लग गई, बस कार से टच हुई है। अम्मा दो बाप बेटे थे, उन्होंने मेरे अब्बू को बहुत मारा और हमें भी मारा, जल्दी चलो।
The anger and frustration of his family and friends spilled onto the streets. Protesters parked themselves on the main road seeking immediate action. Neighbors joined hands, they formed a human chain and blocked all traffic in solidarity with the bereaved family.
This is the spot outside Turkman Gate where this incident has taken place late last night. And apparently the person called Shahnawaz was riding a two-wheeler and he was accompanied by his son here. And this is the exact intersection where this incident has taken place outside Turkman Gate.
Through the night, police were in riot gear on full alert, prepared for any eventuality.
एक व्यक्ति हैं वसीम, उसको ऑलरेडी हमने गिरफ्तार कर लिया है, बाकी चार को जो है ढूंढा जा रहा है, तो जल्दी ही उनको हम गिरफ्तार कर लेंगे।
Though CCTV cameras have been installed in the area, protesters claim these are just showpieces. This fact only fueling anger against the police.
इंसाफ चाहते हैं, हमारे सामने वो सारे गिरफ्तार होके आए, 18 भाई वो 18।
You can see that people are really worried and what they are asking for is justice for the death of Shahnawaz. With camera person Dharmveer Gautam, Atir Khan in Delhi for Headlines Today.
Well, if you own a car, chances are you've actually experienced some sort of road rage. I've been in road rage situations. I can tell you that in any big city, it's absolutely dangerous now to actually take things on directly in such a situation. Let me also tell you how this is more than just an isolated case. It's happening everywhere, but nowhere more so than in Delhi. And I've got figures to actually tell you how bad it actually is. Take a look at these figures that we've actually been able to pull out from 2009 all the way till 2014 to give you a sense. That graph really speaks for itself. And these are cases of road rage that have resulted in either death or bodily harm, grievous bodily harm. 25 cases registered in 2009, 93 cases registered in 2014. We don't have the figures yet for 2015, but you can bet that the numbers are really high. And what these numbers, let me also put another caveat to tell you what these numbers mean. It's only cases that actually make it to the police. Imagine how many cases there are out there which actually don't go to the police, where people actually get beaten up and break their bones. But what are those reasons for people flying off the handle when they're actually in their cars? Aggressive driving, people trying to race on the roads. You've seen it happen if you live in a big city, cutting others off in a lane, chasing other motorists, especially if it's women, excessive honking. People are on edge all the time when they're on the road for some reason, shouting verbal abuses or threats, gestures that may be construed as rude or insulting, and in some cases, some extreme cases, and they've been recorded even here in Delhi, assaulting other motorists. So believe me when I say the data actually stacks up to make Delhi India's anger capital. This is a real problem. Delhi is famous all over the country for being one of India's most unsafe cities. But let's never forget that it's also one of India's angriest. And a terrible reminder came in the murder of 38-year-old Shahnawaz. His crime, a minor accident in the late hours just yesterday in Old Delhi. His crime, he bumped into a car with his motorcycle. He had his 2 little children with him, and now he's dead. Because after that little accident, he was bludgeoned to death by the occupants of that car, and nothing has happened so far. With me here on Newsroom tonight is Suhail Malik, the brother of Shahnawaz. Also with us in just a moment will be Dr. Kiran Bedi, former IPS officer, highly decorated, has done a lot of work in Delhi itself and understands the nature of this crime. Suhail, क्या हुआ था? कल रात को exactly क्या हुआ था? किसी ने मदद भी नहीं किया था?
किसी ने मदद तो दूर की बात, मेरा भतीजा 2 पुलिस वालों के पास गया। मैं कितनी बार अभी बोल के इंटरव्यू में भी बोल कर आया हूँ कि उसने कहा कि अंकल मेरे डैडी को मार रहे हैं, उनको बचाओ। तो वो लोग वहाँ से उठ के चले गए। इतने में हम लोग पीछे से भाग कर आए। मैं तैयार अपनी दोस्त की शादी में जा रहा था। वहाँ पे जैसे ही 10 बज आके देखा है 11:25 पर ये चीज़ हुई है। 11:32 पर हम वहाँ पहुँचे तो मेरा भाई वहाँ पड़ा। हमने उठाया, वो लोग इधर उधर भाग रहे तो उनको क्या पकड़ते, पहले अपने भाई को देखा। और इनफैक्ट वहाँ से ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा 10 मीटर की तो बहुत है, 5 मीटर की दूरी पे सीसीटीवी कैमरा है। उसकी फुटेज अभी तक हमारे पास नहीं आई है। अगर पुलिस चाहे तो उस फुटेज से सबको 1 सेकंड में पता कर ले।
पुलिस आपको क्या बता रहा है अभी तक? अभी तक क्या बताया? पुलिस
सिर्फ हमसे पूछती है ये था, इसका नाम है, ये है, सबके नाम पूछते हैं। हाँ जी ये है। अगर सीसीटीवी में साफ जाहिर हो जाएगा कौन था, कौन सी गाड़ी थी, लेकिन वो फुटेज ही नहीं दिखाते। जबकि वो सीसीटीवी कैमरा चालू है, उसके बाद भी वो लोग हमसे कह रहे हैं कि वो सीसीटीवी कैमरा खराब है, उसकी फुटेज अभी तक हमें कोई नहीं दिखाई गई है।
Dr. Bedi, you know, this is something that repeats itself every so often. We hear about this very often. Suhail here, young Suhail here, has just talked about how they rushed to the scene of the crime. There was no help from everybody else. And the first ordeal they faced was not just, trying to help their relative, but actually convincing the police that something of this, nature had actually happened. Nothing ever changes, Dr. Bedi.
Because once we know the cause of such failures, we don't put in an operational plan, an operating plan to correct this. The point is, we move from one incident to the other, Shiv, but we don't have a comprehensive correctional plan in place which involves citizens' awareness, citizens' education, and very tight bad character control in the areas, and also professionalizing the police. You see, it's all 3 angles, I think, are very, very weak.
Absolutely. Suhail bhai, एक बात बताइए। होली के दिन पे एक कपल के पास भी एक रोड रेज का इशू हुआ था। 2 दिन पहले भी नोएडा में एक इंसिडेंट ऐसे हुआ था जिसमें 2 लोग मारे गए। आपको क्या लगता है, लोगों को दिल्ली में इतना गुस्सा क्यों है, स्पेशली रोड पे?
स्पेशली कुछ लोग ऐसे हैं जो अपने आप को कुछ ज्यादा एटीट्यूड में समझते हैं, या दादागिरी। हाँ। हर कोई इंसान अपने आप में दादा बना हुआ है कि मुझसे बढ़कर कोई है नहीं, सब ईगोइस्टिक समझते हैं ना, बस वो सब में ऐसे ही कुछ आ गया है। अब लोगों को तो हम हर कोई इंसान तो एक जैसा है नहीं, लेकिन फिर भी कई लोग ऐसे हैं जो दूसरे इंसान को अपने आगे कुछ समझते ही नहीं है कि वो इंसान ही नहीं है मेरे आगे, जो किसी को देखना ही नहीं।
क्योंकि ये दिल्ली का एक असलियत है। हाँ, क्योंकि ये बाकी सिटीज में नहीं होता।
जिसके पास 2 पैसे ज्यादा हैं वो समझता है कि मैं यहाँ का शेर हूँ, मैं सब कुछ कर सकता हूँ। जिसके पास फोर्स है, सोर्स है, वो ये समझता है कि मैं दिल्ली का शेर हूँ।
तो आप अब क्या करना चाहेंगे? पुलिस क्या आपका मदद कर रहे हैं?
हमें पुलिस की मदद चाहिए, आपकी मदद चाहिए। हम विनती करते हैं सबके आगे जोड़ के कि हमारे भाई को इंसाफ चाहिए, और जिन्होंने मेरे भाई को पकड़ा है, जिन्होंने मेरे भाई के साथ ये किया, उन सबको मिलकर पकड़ना चाहिए। और हमारे हाथ में दो, जनता के हाथ में दो, या इंसाफ कुछ भी करो, बस उनको कुछ भी करके पकड़ के लाओ। क्योंकि कल यहाँ आम आदमी पार्टी के MLA कहकर गए कि सुबह 12 बजे से पहले सारे मिलेंगे, लेकिन 3 बज गया, 4 बज गया, 6 बज गया, 7 बजने को आ गया, 7:30 बजने को आ गया, लेकिन अभी तक एक बंदा पकड़ा है, उसका वो भी अननोन पर्सन है, वो भी उनका रिश्तेदार है। कौन है हम नहीं जानते, वो कौन है, बस किसी को पकड़ रखा है, और वो जो मेन करने वाले हैं वो लोग फरार हैं।
Dr. Bedi, considering that you've done so much work you know, in Delhi. You know Delhi so well. Much of your work has been concentrated in the national capital. So in many ways, you understand this culture. You've been out there, you know, doing active policing on the streets of Delhi where these crimes actually happen. You know, apart from the sensitization, apart from the, apart from the cultural aspect, which are always going to be long-term things, are there, can you give us 3 or 4 things that can be done immediately, ma'am? You know, that must be implemented immediately that can check things like road rage.
Shiv, first of all, it goes back to your student life. It goes back to your school education. Who teaches us citizenship? Who teaches us civic sense? Who teaches us respect for law? Who teaches us to become police cadets as students?
But ma'am, why is it confined to Delhi? Why is this exclusive to Delhi?
No, it isn't, Shiv. I think I beg to differ. It's not exclusive to Delhi.
But you don't hear about it so much from other places.
I think such a situation has been happening. No, Shiv. Delhi makes news. I think whatever happens in Delhi makes news. Others goes unreported or uncovered. It is not exclusive to news. I think India is creating law breakers rather than law abiders. We, by our education, by our upbringing, creating a whole generation of law breakers and not law abiders. Because the fear of criminal justice system is declined by the day. It's declined. And the infrastructure of policing in crime prevention is far below than what the situation needs. The bad character control,
yes,
the punishment systems, I think is far below than the infrastructure of criminal justice system is far below what the society needs today. Therefore, we have to work on crime prevention. We've got to involve youth as students in social service, in linkages and as student cadets. We need to have police student cadets at the student life.
Absolutely.
So that police and students as youth learn to work together. None of this thing exists anywhere, barring a few student cadet services in southern India, etc. But not as a national plan. Unless you have a crime prevention plan which involves youth and social service. Where is social service? I think we are creating, as I said, indifferent youth. It's indifferent youth, it's individualistic youth, and citizenship education is totally absent in our educational system.
It's absolutely terrifying. The picture you paint is actually terrifying. I know what you're doing is offering, some kind of a solution, Dr. Bedi, given your experience on the streets of Delhi, but it's terrifying that the problem is actually so deep-rooted. It's actually almost disconcerting the amount of work that, perhaps needs to be done to even begin understanding how to solve this problem. Suhail bhai, एक आखिरी सवाल आपसे. ये देश का कैपिटल है, देश का राजधानी है. वहां पे सीसीटीवी कैमरा था. ये इतना लेट नहीं था कि कोई था नहीं. लोग थे, ट्रैफिक थे, लोग थे, लोगों के पास कैमरास होते हैं, फोन पे फोटो भी खींच सकते थे, पर अभी तक कुछ भी नहीं.
उन लोगों
मदद नहीं, फोटो नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं
किया है. उन लोगों की वहाँ पे इतनी दादागिरी है. जब 2 पुलिस वालों से मेरे भतीजे ने जाकर ये कहा है कि सर इनको बचाइए, तो पुलिस वाले उठ के चलेगा, तो आप खुद सोचिए उन लोगों की दादागिरी कैसी होगी वहाँ पर.
आप क्या एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं? क्या आप एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन साफ होगा और वो पकड़े जाएंगे?
मैं तो इस वक्त कुछ एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहा कि क्या होगा, आगे क्या होगा. बस हम तो यही चाहते हैं कि लोग हमारा साथ दे, मीडिया हमारा साथ दे, तो शायद कुछ हो सकता है. पुलिस के ऊपर से इस वक्त हमारा भरोसा बहुत कम है, 1% से भी कम है.
Well, that's a terrible testimony to the way people feel about road rage.
चाहे मैं एक बात कहूँगा कि अगर पुलिस चाहे तो कुछ भी कहीं से भी करके 24 घंटे होने को आ रहे हैं. अब तक तो दाऊद इब्राहिम को उठा के भी ले आते बस.
It's not even a signal. They say they haven't even got a signal of reassurance from the police about this particular issue. Now, is that about the investigation or is that about a culture itself?
मोबाइल नंबर से 1 मिनट में ट्रेसिंग हो जाती है. आजकल तो IMEI से किसी का
What Suhail has basically said today is he has no faith in anything except the media coverage of this issue and on the politicians who perhaps promised them that there will be actually forward movement. But let's remember, the death of 38-year-old Shahnawaz last night in Old Delhi is not an isolated case. Hundreds of people get involved in road rage. It's cases like Shahnawaz where the person actually dies at the end of it that actually get highlighted. But Delhi is India's anger capital. Make no mistake. Suhail and Dr. Kiran Bedi, thank you very much for joining us on this story. Thank you for joining us in the newsroom.